My advice for any young coach is to coach, and that sounds silly, it sounds basic, but it's so important. He's got really good energy about him, and when we came together, we fitted really well.
First of all, please just introduce yourself.
I'm Eddie Howe, Newcastle United manager.
Let's start off with the amazing season you're having. Obviously, Carabao Cup Final, you're flying in the league, you're doing well defensively as well, you haven't conceded that many goals. What's the most important part of preparation for big games like the Carabao Cup Final?
Well, I don't think it's just big games. I think preparation for us is we try to be very consistent. I feel the players want that for games. I don't think although they want the training to be different, but I think the closer you get to the game, more consistent we are. So I think we will try and treat it like any other game. And sometimes it's about taking the pressure off the players rather than adding pressure to them. And sometimes it's about adding pressure to them and making them realise the importance of the game. So I think you have to read your players' mindsets as you start to prepare the match.
What's the most important part of the preparation? Is it the tactics? Is it the mental side of things?
I'd say it's a combination of everything. I don't think you can neglect one aspect of it. So certainly the tactical preparation's hugely important. Physically, you've got to get the players in the right frame of mind. So in the right place. So you don't want to overtrain, you don't want to undertrain. So you've got to get the balance right. And then mentally, the players have got to enter the pitch in a confident place and being able to express themselves in the best way that they can. So all of these things we try and consider from the team perspective, but also from the individual place as well.
And how do you prepare for success? Is it a case of the start of the season setting objectives and stuff like that, or is it a game-by-game basis?
Well, I don't know if you can prepare for success. I think you try and create a culture and a way of working that gives you the optimum chance for success. But I've never been one to try and predict what's going to happen or set goals too early that maybe could be then seen as negative if you don't achieve them. So you've got to tread very carefully around things like that, I think. But the culture and the day-to-day working and the atmosphere in the group, they're things you can control, and that's what we try and concentrate on.
If you weren't a footballer or football manager, what would you be and why?
I think if I hadn't gone into football initially, I'd have probably gone to university in some capacity. I didn't really have a clear path of what I was going to do. As a lad, I was obsessed by sport, football in particular, of course, but I love all sports, different games, and was very athletic and wanted to be part of that world, but I didn't quite know if I wasn't going to be good enough to play football, where it would take me. So university seemed like a good way to go. It's very difficult to predict, but I think I would have ended up there, and then what I would have fallen into, I don't really know.
With athletes, careers can be a decade or less. So how important is education for athletes that are playing in the professional game?
It's very important. I'd encourage any young professional to think about trying to train or teach themselves to do something else, whether that's attached to sport or not. Certainly we have a few players here that have done a few degrees and business courses, and I really compliment them for that, because it's difficult when you're in sport, professional level, to give the time to do that, but I think it's vitally important for their future beyond football.
Have you managed anyone that is currently studying or has been studying whilst managing them, or anyone that has had a degree, and how did it affect their sort of day-to-day training?
Yeah, I never saw a detrimental effect on their training or their time or availability. So we've had several players that have done different things, whether that's an online course, whether that's actually at a place that they go. But I've known they're doing it, and I've supported them in that, and I would encourage them to do it. But it never impacted their profession, which is first and foremost the most important thing.
And all elite managers face major challenges. What insight would you pass on about being resilient and handling setbacks? It
is probably the most important aspect, I'd say, of your makeup as a coach or a manager, because there's so many of them. You can't run away from them, they're there. And even in successful times, you know they're potentially just around the corner. So I think being aware of that first and foremost is key. So even in the good times, you can very easily, I think, as a young coach or young person, to think I've cracked it or we're okay now. Those words, they don't exist, because the game swings, the momentum can swing very, very quickly. So you've got to be on your guard, and that's where you've just got to make sure your own standards, personal standards, are high, whether you're winning, losing. And also not listen to outside noise. Listen to your own thoughts, listen to those opinions you respect. You need a team around you that can give you the truth, but don't listen to people that don't really know your inner workings or you as a person, because I think that can be very dangerous.
And then you've been at Burnley, obviously in the northwest, you've been down south at Bournemouth, you've been up in Newcastle where you are now. Relocating is a journey that a lot of our students go on. What advice would you have for anyone that's relocating to a new city?
The things that I've tried to do when I've moved is I've tried to fully embrace where I'm going and go with my best intentions. So what I mean by that is I haven't gone anywhere and then commuted back, which I think is almost impossible to do with the length of distance where I've been. Because my home is in sort of my overall home, my long-term home I think is in Bournemouth, my family's still in Bournemouth, but I've gone with the intention that I'm going to stay, I'm going to commit, I'm not going to travel back. Different now, I've got children and a wife, so they've come with me, but younger people I still feel that need that clarity, because I think it's only then you can fully commit to whatever work you're doing. If you've got half a mind on what's going on somewhere else, I don't think you'll give your best work. So I think that was really important for me to do in both experiences away.
And what's the best advice you've ever been given?
So it's such a broad question. I don't think there's one bit of advice I've been given. I think where I've been successful has been that I've always wanted to improve. So no one really gave me that advice. That was just something that I saw for myself. As a young coach, young manager, I knew that I didn't know anything really. I was given an opportunity and a chance to manage, and I wanted to be successful. So from that day to now, I've sort of seeked learnings. I've tried to improve myself. I've travelled to anywhere that I think can give me a bit of information that will make me better, and I think that one quality has served me so well. When I look at my work now to then, in my early days, it's not actually massively different, but I've definitely evolved and changed and tweaked things, and that's down to having an open mind, really.
What advice would you have for our coaching students that would one day want to get into management?
My advice for any young coach is to coach, and that sounds silly, it sounds basic, but it's so important. When I was first starting out, I was a little bit standoffish, and I'd just finished playing and now thrust into coaching, and I'm thinking I don't know what I'm doing here. I've seen other people do it, but when you're actually doing it, it's totally different. I was really fortunate to get a chance to coach really young children, so from the age of sort of 8 to 16. And the best thing I did was actually coach them, even the 8-year-olds, where you think it's really breaking it down to such basic levels. But it was really, really good for me to do that. And then I progressed through and learned so much in those early days that then when I was coaching professionals, I was able to use that body of experience to help me in that environment. So I'd say to coaches that nothing can replace it, nothing can substitute it. You've actually got to get on the grass and do it.
And what type of people or qualities in people do you like to surround yourself with in your coaching staff to help do your job?
Yeah, good question. I mean, something that you don't necessarily think about on that level sometimes when you're putting a team together. It sounds, again, crazy not to do that, but you end up forming friendships and relationships that go with you through time. So I got together with Jason Tyndall very early in my coaching career, more because we were both in the same position. We were both retired through injury, and we were both without work, and we sort of came together. So I wouldn't say necessarily he picked me or I picked him. We came together, but we worked from day one. We had a really good synergy and energy together where we were polar opposites. So I'm quite analytical and thoughtful, and we'll break the game down. I want to go into detail. I'm quite introverted, quite quiet, don't really want to mix too much socially. I want to stick to what I know, whereas Jason's the absolute polar opposite of all those qualities. So he's much more a people person. He's very open, friendly, wants to engage and socialise. He's got a really good energy about him, and when we came together, we fitted really well. If I had another me next to me, it wouldn't have worked. So actually having opposite qualities as characters probably is really important when you're coaching, and when you're put together for so long and such intense periods, those differences are actually very healthy for you. You need a balance, yeah. As I say, two me's would be wrong, and probably two Jasons together would be wrong in that environment. And I don't think we would have stood the test of time if we were the similar people. I think we've actually stood the test of time because we are very different.
And have you used sports psychologists, and if so, what benefits do they bring?
We've used a whole range of ideas and things always for the players' benefit. So we've done psychology sessions as a team. We've done psychology lessons in smaller groups. I've never done or encouraged really individual psychology. I've never pushed that on players, that's up to them. But I would encourage them to do it if they needed it, sort of psychology on a one-to-one level. But the only other things that I've sort of led has been the team sessions where we might get a guest speaker in, or we worked with a psychologist at Bournemouth who was very, very good in loads of different subjects, and I hope the players all benefited from that. So yeah, I believe in psychology. I think there's massive gains to be made in that area.
What is the best moment of your career so far?
There's a couple of moments that stick out and brings a smile to my face. One was promotion to the Premier League. Well, I think all the promotions really I've had, they're such rare moments in football. And I've been lucky enough to go on a journey which most managers don't go on, from League Two to League One to the Championship to the Premier League. And I feel so fortunate to have gone on that path where learning from the very, not the bottom, but from the very depths of League Two to upwards. I could not have had a better way of ending up in the Premier League, because I think I was much better prepared for those experiences from where I come from. And then the experiences at Burnley, that was a real highlight, moving and then going back and to Bournemouth and then coming to Newcastle latterly. I think it's just been been an amazing thing, and I feel really lucky to have had all the experiences I had in my career.
And what motivates you?
Yeah, difficult one. I think I'm motivated from a whole source of things, different places. So I think my upbringing, naturally. I think everyone's got a different history, they've got a different family upbringing. I think I'm hugely motivated by the opportunity that was given to me by my mum to play football, to no pressure put on me by her. But that's actually helped me develop dreams and aims and ambitions that I was determined to try and achieve. And then I think through my footballing career, there was definitely a fear of failure as I played. I didn't want to let people down, and I didn't want to disappoint people. So that was probably a negative feeling, which has then driven me and served me well in management, I think. So I've still sort of got an element of that in me, where I don't want to fail or disappoint or let people down who've entrusted me in this job. But I try and look at it slightly differently now, and I try and take away a bit of the fear and use it more as a motivating tool to succeed and to try and create memories, and lasting memories, not just for me and my family, but for my players and for the supporters of the club that I'm associated to.
And what's the best thing about working in football?
A very basic thing, you're doing something you love and you're involved in a game that you actually, I'd play for free. I've always been that, I love football that much. So if you're lucky enough to then do that as your job, it's an incredible thing. Now sometimes the job is very intense and draining and difficult, and sometimes you question how much you love it at times, but you do, ultimately you do. And I think that you're doing your hobby really as your work. It's an incredible thing.
And what's one piece of advice you'd give to anyone wanting to work in the sports or football industry, whether it be coaching, maybe backroom staff, maybe as chief executives one day? Yeah, one piece of advice?
I'll give a couple, I think. I think having a genuine love for what you do is really important. So it goes back to the thing I've just said about, I think, if you're a CEO, kit man, you've got to love putting the kit out, you've got to love helping the players, you've got to enjoy it, and you've got to, in my opinion, be really positive doing it as well. Because I've seen from the other side as a manager the power that all my staff have. Every single person in the training ground building can influence the players, positively or negatively. Very easy to get into a negative mindset and bring negativity onto the players. I encourage all my staff to try and have positive interactions and try and help. So you're actually influencing results in your work. The other advice would be to grow in your role and to try and be the best at what you do. As I say, that's what I've tried to do in my role as a coach. Maybe you'll be amazed how many people can sit and settle for their life and their role, but I would encourage you to be even better at what you're doing by training and educating yourself.
And having had amazing careers both as a player and as a manager, how do the two compare?
Yeah, they're very different. I'd say I prefer playing. Yeah, I prefer playing. I think everyone would say that, I think. I prefer playing in the respect you're doing the actual thing that you did as a kid. So you're 6, 7, 8, you're kicking a ball against the wall, you don't really know why, but you're doing it because you love it. And scoring a goal and those emotions, not that I did it very often, but scoring a goal and those emotions, there's nothing like it. You can't replicate that in life, I don't think. But the next best thing is managing. And for me then it's helping people. You're coaching the players to be better, you're coaching the players to fulfill the dreams that maybe you didn't as a player, and so you're passing that on. And I think that's a great feeling as you get older in life, to try and make other people happy and give them the best moments of their careers. That's my aim now.
And lastly, describe football management in one word.
A roller coaster. It really is. You're never level. You're up for a few seconds, then you're down. Hopefully a few seconds, not long, then you're up again. And it's having the ability to handle those ups and downs in the same way, and to not overreact in each situation, and to give yourself longevity in the job.